Evan was very embarrassed that Michael knew he was extremely ticklish, and he absolutely despised every second of when Michael had tickled him. Evan began thinking about revenge. He would do anything to make Michael pay for tickling him. He knew that Michael was extremely ticklish, just not as ticklish as himself. Evan suddenly had an idea. Maybe he could get his dad to help him get revenge on Michael for tickling him. He knew that his dad was a master at scheming and manipulation. A smirk appeared on Evan's face as he thought about this plan. He was excited to put it into motion. He couldn't wait to see the look on Michael's face when he finally got his revenge. Evan went to his dad's room and knocked on the door. "Father, can I talk to you for a second?" he asked.
William looks up from one of his blueprints and nods. "Come on in." He smiles at his son and turns to face at him in his swiveling chair.
Evan enters the room and closes the door behind him. "Father, I need your help with something. It's about Michael." He says it in a serious tone, his arms crossed.
"Michael? What has he done now?" He says with a hint of annoyance in his voice. He's always annoyed when anyone talks about Michael since he's his least favorite son.
"He tickled me, and he knows how ticklish I am," Evan muttered, still feeling embarrassed about the whole situation. "I want revenge. Can you help me get it? Please."
William smirks at that question, finding the whole situation amusing. Seeing his son embarrassed from being tickled by Michael made him want to laugh, but he kept his composure. "All right, I'll help you get him back. What do you have in mind?"
"Well, first we'll need to restrain Michael somehow. Maybe you could pin him down and hold his hands above his head. Then I can go in for the attack." Evan grinned mischievously, feeling excited about getting revenge on his big brother.
William chuckled softly at the idea of restraining Michael, finding it amusing that his own son had come up with such a plan. "All right, sounds like a plan. I'll hold him down and you go in for the attack. Let's teach him a lesson."
Michael was busy scrolling, and he was on his phone, walking down the hallway, headphones on, not giving a flying F about anyone else's existence. He yawns as he continues walking, getting even closer to his room. Michael opens the door, not suspecting anything wrong. He takes off his headphones and spots his dad and little bro sitting casually on his bed. He freezes at the sight, feeling his heart drop with dread.
William chuckled as he saw the look on Michael's face, clearly enjoying this situation. He then spoke up, his voice calm yet firm. "Hello, Michael." He said his name with a hint of annoyance, his eyes fixed on him. Evan, on the other hand, was grinning mischievously, clearly excited for the upcoming payback.
"Hey, Mike." Evan smirked as he spoke, his voice filled with a mischief and satisfaction. He was clearly enjoying seeing Michael's expression of dread, finding it rather amusing. William, still holding tightly to Michael's wrists, held him firmly in place, not allowing him to move an inch.
Michael swallows hard, the feeling of dread only growing as he sees the grins on their faces, the realization of what was about to happen sinking in. The sound of William's firm voice and Evan's mischief-filled greeting only adding to his nerves, making him tense up. His eyes darting from William's stern gaze to Evan's grin, he tries to break free from William's grip, but to no avail. "What the hell are you two planning?"
William tightens his grip on Michael's wrists, holding him firmly in place. "Well, your brother came to me and said that you tickled him," he says, his tone still calm, yet a hint of annoyance could be heard, "and that you know how ticklish he is, so we have decided to get you back." Evan then approached Michael and stood right in front of him, a devilish grin on his face, ready to get his revenge.
"Exactly." Evan chuckled, enjoying the sight of his big brother being held captive and in a vulnerable position. "And since you find it so amusing to tickle people, especially me, well, now you can experience it yourself." He smirked, his eyes flickering with mischief as he slowly raised his hands. He was about to begin his assault, starting with the most vulnerable spot he knew that Michael was ticklish at, the sides.
"Wait a minute. No." Michael struggled against William's iron grip, desperate to prevent the tickling that he knew would ensue, his sides the absolute most ticklish spot on his whole body. "You wouldn't. That's not fair. No, 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 please. Not there. Anywhere but there." Evan, he was cut off when Evan's fingers made contact with his sides, a loud yelp escaping his lungs as a fit of laughter followed.
Evan couldn't help but chuckle at the sound of Michael's laughter and desperate pleas. His fingers continued to attack the sensitive area, mercilessly digging into the vulnerable sides and eliciting a series of uncontrollable giggles and laughs. Seeing his usually tough and strong brother reduced to a squirming, helpless mess was incredibly satisfying. Oh, but it is fair. He smirked. You tickled me first, after all. Now you better get comfortable. You're not going anywhere.
William watched with amusement as Evan continued to torment his older brother's sides, his ticklish reaction and desperate pleas only seeming to further his sadistic enjoyment. He let out a low chuckle, his grip on Michael's wrists tight as he held him in place. You should have thought of the consequences before tickling poor Evan, he said with a smirk, finding the whole situation oddly amusing. He knew how much his sons playfully fought, but he never imagined he would see such a vulnerable side of Michael.
Michael could barely speak between the loud and uncontrolled laughs that burst from him, his sides exploding with ticklish sensations that made him arch against William's hold. He tried in vain to twist away, but his father's grip was too strong. Tears were welling up in his eyes, streaming down his cheeks in a mixture of helplessness and intense ticklishness. I'm sorry, just please stop," he managed to gasp out, his voice cracking between bouts of giggles.
Evan relished in Michael's suffering, his fingers continuing to mercilessly torture the extremely sensitive sides. Each touch sent waves of uncontrollable giggles and squirms that filled the room. He chuckled at the sight of Michael's teary eyes and apology. Yet he had no plans on stopping yet. Not yet, he responded, his voice holding a hint of smug satisfaction. You did this to me, and you enjoyed it. Now it's your turn to suffer. Just a little longer.
Michael's sides were on fire, every part of him screaming at him to escape the incessant ticklish sensations. His body arched uncontrollably, a constant stream of laughter pouring from his lips. "Ha ha! No, please! That tickles so much." He writhed helplessly in William's grip, the tears streaming down his face like rivers. Michael was a laughing, crying, squirming mess, the tickles on his sides making him writhe against his father's hold, a non-stop stream of laughter exploding from his lungs. "Ha ha ha ha! Stop! And no more, please!" Tears streamed down his face as the tickles continued, each one more intense than the last, making his sides feel like they were on fire from the ticklish sensation.
The laughter and pleas of Michael only fueled Evan's resolve further. Enjoying the sight of his brother reduced to a squirming, teary-eyed mess, his fingers continued their relentless barrage of tickles on the sensitive sides, knowing he had him completely vulnerable. No more? But I'm not done yet, he smirked, pressing his fingers even harder into the sides, his eyes filled with a wicked glee as he watched his brother struggle and plead. You didn't show any mercy when it was my turn. Why should I show mercy to you?
William watched the scene with sadistic glee, clearly pleased with how things were unfolding. He chuckled softly at Michael's desperate pleas and the sight of his tears. "Ah, is it too much for you, Michael?" he mocks, enjoying the sound of his son's laughter. "Evan, don't stop now. I want him to really understand what it's like to be tickled, helpless." Evan nodded and continued his torment on Michael's sides, the intensity of his touch never wavering. William seized the opportunity to add to the torment, realizing Michael's exposed armpits. He grins deviously and says with a hint of sinister amusement in his voice, "Oh, Evan, I think you missed a spot." He moves towards Michael's armpits, his fingers hovering over the vulnerable area. He could tell the added ticklish sensation would take Michael to a whole new level of squirming.
Michael's eyes widened in horror as he heard his father mention the possibility of adding another ticklish spot into the mix. The realization dawned upon him that his vulnerable areas were now exposed and at risk. As soon as William's fingers started hovering over his armpits, he tensed up in anticipation, his heart racing in fear of what was coming. No. Seeing William moving towards his exposed armpits sent a wave of fresh dread through Michael, and he tried to pull away, but was completely restrained by his father's iron grip. His arms were still held high above his head, leaving his armpits exposed and vulnerable to the ticklish onslaught. No, not there! Please, not there! Anything but the pits! Ha ha ha! Michael's laughter turned desperate as the fingers began to tease and tickle his armpit, the intense sensations making him arch and writhe uncontrollably.
The sight and sound of Michael's increasing desperation brought a sense of twisted satisfaction to Evan and William. They both knew how insanely ticklish he was in the armpits, and now they were taking advantage of this weakness to their full advantage. Oh, this is so much fun. Evan chuckled, thoroughly enjoying the sight of his brother squirming and laughing helplessly. You were the one who thought it was so funny to tickle me. Now look at you, begging and pleading to stop. It's almost as if karma has finally caught up with you.
With his arms completely immobilized above his head, Michael's upper body was entirely at the mercy of his father and brother. The intense tickling in his armpits made him almost lose his mind, his laughter and pleading becoming more and more desperate. Ha 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 ha, no ho ho ho. Please, stop, I can't take it, ah ha ha ha. His legs kicked involuntarily, adding to the chaotic display as he struggled ineffectively against their grip, tears of laughter streaming down his flushed face.
William chuckled as he continued to mercilessly tickle Michael's armpits, enjoying the sheer helplessness and the begging for mercy coming from his son. "I don't think so, not yet at least," he said, digging his fingers deeper into the sensitive area, his grip on Michael remaining firm. William loved the feeling of power he had in this moment, watching as Michael struggled and laughed uncontrollably under his fingers. He knew he could keep this up as long as he wanted, and it was incredibly sadistically satisfying for him.
After half an hour of relentless tickling, Evan and William ceased their assault, releasing their grip and allowing Michael to drop to the floor. The two of them stood back, taking in the sight of their big brother panting and breathless, his sides and armpits raw and sensitive from the tickling. Evan couldn't help but smirk at the sight of his brother lying exhausted on the floor, still catching his breath from the tickle attack. "Well, that was fun," he said, a hint of satisfaction in his voice.
William chuckled, a look of smug satisfaction on his face as he looked down at Michael, who was still trying to catch his breath after the tickling onslaught. He couldn't help but feel a sense of twisted pride. "Indeed, it was quite an entertaining spectacle," he replied, his tone laced with a hint of sadism. He crossed his arms, looking down at his son who was lying on the floor, still panting and recovering from the tickling torment he had endured.
Michael tried to steady his breathing, his sides and armpits still feeling raw and sensitive from the tickling. He propped himself up on his elbows, panting heavily as he looked up at his father and brother, still feeling a mix of resentment and humiliation. He tried to speak, but his voice came out hoarse and breathless after all the laughing and pleading he just went through. You bastards."
William chuckled, enjoying the sound of Michael's hoarse and breathless voice. He knew he had pushed his son to his limits, and it was a satisfying feeling for him. He pretended to move closer towards Michael as if he was going to tickle him again, only to pause at the last moment. His eyes gleamed with sadistic amusement as he spoke in a teasing voice. "Do you really want to test me, son? 'Cause I can keep this up for even longer, you know."
Michael's eyes widened in horror as William moved closer, his body involuntarily tensing and preparing for another round of tickling. The mere thought of going through the torment again sent a wave of fear and desperation coursing through him. "No, please, please, no more. I've learned my lesson. I'm sorry for tickling, Evan. I promise I won't do it again. Just please no more tickling," he pleaded, his hoarse and breathless voice still filled with panicked desperation.